are you cutting it off so early? Good evening, I am Christopher Balzano.
I am Ella Balzano.
And welcome to Tripping on Legends, episode 95. The elevator game. I want to welcome everyone who's watching us tonight on Instagram. If you are not following us on Instagram, our Instagram is at Spooky Tripping. At Spooky Tripping. Our Twitter is at Spooky Balzano. We are broadcasting tonight as well on Midnight FM,
where it's always midnight.
And we have our regular time slot of 8:30 to 10 o'clock. We usually end up a little bit earlier than that to give room for the flagship. If you are not yet subscribed to us via podcast, I want to encourage you guys to do that. Go on to iTunes, Google Play, wherever you happen to get your podcasts, and subscribe. I'm doing things a little bit differently now. What I'm doing is, I love the live audience. I love bringing Ella in on the live audience. I love that back and forth, and I think there's a value to it. I especially love when we can actually get a back and forth. On the podcast feed now, traditionally I was putting up both a video and an audio version of the show on Hipcast, which would then go through those things. I'm not doing that anymore, so I actually edit the audio down and I edit the video down and post them. So you don't have to worry if you had unsubscribed because you were like, I'm tired of watching the video. I mean, who wants to see my ugly mug? Then you're beautiful. Then you can just get the audio version now, and it'll only come the audio version. And if you are not, if you like watching our interactions, if you like watching what we're doing here, then please make sure to follow us on Facebook, which is facebook.com/trippingonlegends, because there I do put the video. So if you like the video and the comments that are going on in the chat room and all those kinds of things, this is a really good way to get that. Tonight I want to start with, like I said, the title proper of the episode is the elevator game, but it just happened to fall, and those of you guys who are following us on social media, it happens to fall on the 40th anniversary of the abduction of Adam Walsh. Now, do you know anything about that at all? Have you been following kind of back and forth what we've been doing? Adam Walsh was abducted from a Florida mall. After he was thrown out of Sears. I mean, anyone who knows the case, or you can just Google the case, we're not going to get into too many details of it. But it was a historic event. It really changed the face of crime in this country, in the face of in the way it's handled. And his father, John Walsh, then went on to found a whole bunch of different organizations having to do with missing children. I'm pretty sure he actually started the Center for Missing and Exploited Children as well. But then, of course, he went on to do America's Most Wanted, which is a groundbreaking television show that has caught more criminals. So it's, once again, I remember watching the movie with you, Lorene. We're hoping to make it through the night, honestly. For those of you guys who are seeing anything wacky on the feed, we're going to go for the feeds as long as we possibly can. There's been lightning for the last hour and a half.
I thought you meant like we'd be like dying.
No, we're not dying.
That's what I took.
Unless we play the elevator game. But what I did was I offered a little bit of... I thought the question would be really easy for fans of the show. But famously... I can't believe... I was about to make... Otis Toole. I was about to say Lucas Otis. Who is his partner. Otis Toole, a crazy, insane person in the state of Florida from Jacksonville, confessed to the murders. And it's widely considered that he found... he was the one that did it. He confessed to it. They've closed the case, essentially. All they ever found of Adam Walsh was a head.
Ooh.
Now, there were other body parts out there. Those body parts were said to be scattered. Mm-hmm. Otis Toole wrote, this is horrific, wrote body part ransom notes to
I've heard of this.
John Walsh, basically saying, if you put this amount of money into an account for me, for jail, I will tell you where this part of him is or that part of him is. I mean, that's really
and he,
horrific.
Tells him where the body parts are.
Now, problem is, Otis O'Toole, I keep saying Otis O'Toole. Otis Toole is, if you're a fan of Rob Zombie, you understand that. Otis Toole was illiterate. He couldn't have written the notes. So he had a friend of his in jail write the notes. Mm-hmm. So tonight, and I thought everyone would know what I was talking about. Tonight I am offering a free copy of Haunted Florida. Why did you say, oh gosh? Of Haunted Florida Love Stories or you can pick Dark Woods or Ghosts of the Bridgewater Triangle, any of them. I'm offering a free copy of any of those 3 books here in the chat room here, in the chat room on Instagram if someone comes up with it on Instagram. But also, I'll tell you if someone gets it over the course of the show, but I won't say what the answer is to the show because I'm also going to put it out there for the podcast listeners. So the first person to respond with the correct answer via email, message, Twitter, whatever it might be, first person to answer that is going to get a free copy of one of those 3 things as well. Do we have someone guessing over there? No. All right. So that's kind of out there, and it's relevant to what we do here at TOL.
What is it?
Obviously, I'll tell you afterwards. I'll tell you the answer.
No, you're not going to tell me the question right now?
I just said the question.
What is it?
Who wrote the notes for Otis Toole to give to John Walsh? Who actually wrote the notes for him? Because
wait, let me guess.
Don't you be saying nothing. All right, so that's thrown out there. I thought we would start tonight, especially with that hard topic, with that intense topic. We would start tonight with a little joke. Mm-hmm. All right, are you ready for the little joke?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hit me.
All right. This is not my joke. Why will my daughter never fall in love with a Sith?
Why?
Why will my daughter never fall in love with a Sith?
Because she's an elevator?
Because then she'd be an elevator! All right, for the record, not my joke.
Didn't you tell me that to me like 6 years ago?
Yes, I think on the day you were born, Jeff Belanger said that joke, and I've been using it ever since. So I'm even stealing my jokes from Jeff Belanger. Tonight's episode is about the elevator game, which is something I've been obsessed with for about a year. Right? Was it a year ago that we got this book and I remember we were taking a walk. We were walking around the neighborhood. We were on like a 2-mile hike. And you were reading this, which means your mom would say you weren't working hard enough if you were able to talk. That's what her mom always used to say during exercise. I think it's a really intriguing story. It's a really intriguing idea. And 2 weeks ago on Evil, they did an episode called E is for Elevator. If you're watching Evil, if you're a fan of Evil, this year they've been doing like this little storybook, and they open up the storybook and it's like A is for this, B is for this, and they did an E is for Elevator. It's episode 4 of season 2 if you want to kind of reference it.
Thank you.
No problem. I had not been until last year. I was not familiar with the elevator game, and I don't think anyone over the age of 20 is familiar with it, unless you happen to do what we do, where you have a teenager, you've got a tween, then it might be in your frame of reference. And I've said a few things about it, and people were like, I haven't the slightest idea what you're talking about. And it got me sparking, got me thinking about the amount of haunted elevators that are out there. And I became kind of obsessed with these 2 different ideas, right? The first idea is, why are we scared crapless of elevators? Like, why is there actually
One of
a fear that we have of elevators? And then the next thing was, what does that hook into?
Ellie.
Like, what is it? Like, what is the bigger? You're interrupting me. You gotta let me do my monologue first. What is the mythology, right? Like, it's one of the things we've done in kind of the new format of the show is we take an idea, we explore it a little bit, we talk about the Florida reference, and then we talk about like why possibly you can get a little closer, girl. We talk about like the bigger scheme, like how it might be connected to other kind of folklore, things like that. Go ahead. What are you talking about, Ellie? This is creepy, right?
Yeah, because it's creepy.
Her friend's name's Ellie. I call her creepy
because she has the weirdest laugh.
She's got the best laugh.
So one of my friends, her like dread, her fear, her biggest fear is elevators. And she says it's because she's scared of like what happens in them and how enclosed it is, or like how you can't get out until you stop.
Okay.
Yeah, and she finds that like really scary.
So we'll get into that a little bit more because that's an interesting idea. So you're talking, I mean, those are all of the loss of control, right? Mm-hmm. Along with claustrophobia, along with
the fear of the unknown.
The fear of the unknown. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth because those I think are all really good reasons that we're scared crapless of elevators, and I think people genuinely are. My first question is, well, why don't we start by talking about the elevator game?
Oh yeah.
So do you want to summarize it first and then read the directions, or do you want to?
I'll summarize it.
Okay.
So basically, the elevator game is when you go into this elevator at any random place, and you go into this elevator and you type in a certain sequence of numbers, and depending on the sequence of numbers, which is different each time actually.
You talk to the mic.
Different each time actually. It will bring you to what they call in evil the nether region, mm-hmm. or hell, but you don't really know where you end up in the one that's mentioned in the book. But yeah, you basically just end up there. There's like a red cross in the distance.
Is that in the book?
That is in the book.
That is in the book, okay.
And it's also in the...
Yep, no, I'm saying, yeah, it was totally in evil. So I find elevators uplifting. That's funny. Want to read?
Sure.
Beautiful. So I know one of the rules is you're never supposed to read on air, but this was compelling enough, and one of the things we found out, if you haven't listened to the home haunted episode that we did, we gotta show the book first so we can kind of give it its credit. We leaned heavily on this book, and it became it's practically like my little Bible, and I think
it is a little Bible.
And I think that it's called.
It's called Dangerous Games to Play in the Dark, a guide to summoning spirits, divining the future, and evoking the supernatural by Lucia Peters.
So, Dangerous Games to Play in the Dark by Lucia, I believe it is. Lucia, you're not fully Italian, so Lucia Peters, who runs the website.
Ghost in my something.
Ghost in the Machine.
Ghost in the Machine. Yeah.
Which I think the first thing that we were doing was Midnight Man, was how we kind of got into. We found her site, and it's an amazing site. And if you want to connect with your kids, say, "Hey, kids," and go on that site with them. And also, you can go onto the home haunted episode, and you can maybe do some evil things with your children, like I do with mine. All right, go ahead, little. Why don't you close the book?
Do you want me to read
I was talking too much?
Yeah. Do you want me to read the instructions?
Yeah, these are the instructions. Oh, I'm sorry. What I was getting into is the reason why we're going to read the instructions is they are so specific. Like, one of the things we found out about this, in all these things, is that, and I haven't heard these specific ones in a while. I didn't go through them today, so I actually want to take notes to see if there's anything, even within like the mythology and the folklore of what you're talking about, that kind of hits some buttons. So, take it over, Ella.
Okay. Just so you know, I'm not good at reading stuff out loud, so we're gonna know that. Number 1,
you've got braces.
Number 1, choose your playing field. The playing field must be a building
you have
at
to
least
talk out louder and directly
10 stories high, and it absolutely must have an elevator. The game cannot proceed if these conditions are not met. 2, memorize the following sequence of numbers: 4, 6, 2, 10. I actually put 13. No, I didn't. 5. Go to your choose words. Go to your chosen building.
I wrote that with my left hand, by the way.
So
I am not left-handed.
Go to your chosen building, call the elevator from the ground floor, and enter it when it arrives, alone. You may commence playing at any time of night or day. However, the game cannot proceed if anyone else is present in the elevator when you begin. Recall the sequence of numbers you previously memorized. This is the order in which you will visit the floors of the building. Begin by pressing the button for the 4th floor. Then, when the elevator arrives at the 4th floor, do not depart, but rather stay aboard and immediately press the button for the 2nd floor. Continue this fashion until you have worked your way through the entire numerical sequence. If a young woman enters the elevator at 5th floor, do not look at her and do not speak to her.
Okay, so can I just stop right there? So in this version of it, in addition to the numbers being different, in Evil they said the woman has to enter. Like the woman will enter
with you.
This one is a woman might enter.
Maybe.
Okay. Go ahead, continue. Sorry.
She's not what she seems.
Not what she seems.
This
pretty
book,
much every woman, right?
This book, it's very mysterious. It says, not what they seem, don't look, don't speak, not what they seem. It does that a lot. It doesn't explain it exactly, but whatever.
I think that's a generic term for evil and an unexplainable. And when you make things ambiguous like that, like you make it so that it could be anything, you make it even scarier. Like if I were to say there's something in the corner looking at us, that's scary. If I were to say
like a unicorn.
Champ is in the corner looking at us.
It could be something pink.
Well, unicorns are pretty evil, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay, after visiting all the floors in the sequence, press the button for the 1st floor. When you do so, one of 2 things will occur. The elevator may descend to the ground floor, or it may ascend to the 10th floor. If the elevator descends to the ground floor, the ritual has not succeeded. Exit immediately once the door is open, don't look back, and don't speak. If the elevator ascends to the 10th floor, however, congratulations, the ritual has succeeded. Don't celebrate yet, though. You're only halfway through. If the elevator ascends to the 10th floor, you will be faced with a choice upon arrival. You may either remain aboard or you may exit. If you choose to remain aboard, immediately press the button for the 1st floor. You may experience some difficulty with this step, but persevere. If the button does not work, keep pressing it until it does, no matter how many times it takes for the elevator to begin moving. Exit the elevator as soon as the doors open at the ground floor. Don't look back and don't speak. Leave the building immediately. If you're feeling bold, however, you may choose to exit the elevator at the 10th floor. Go ahead and explore. You'll be the only person there. Be careful not to venture too far, however. You need to be able to find your way back to the elevator in order to return to your own world. If the young woman entered on the 5th floor, she will take this opportunity to ask you where you are going. Don't look at her. Don't answer her, and don't speak. When you're ready to return home...
She is not what she seems.
She's not what she seems, guys. When you are ready to return home, make your way back to the elevator. You must use the same elevator to return as the one in which you arrived. Recall the sequence of numbers you memorized. You still remember it, don't you? Send the elevator to each one of these floors in order once more, beginning with the 4th floor and ending with the 5th. If the young woman is still in the elevator with you, you should be familiar with the rules by now. Don't look at her, don't speak.
She is not what she seems.
She's not what she seems. When you reach the 5th floor, press the button for the 1st floor. At this point, the elevator will again begin to rise to the 10th floor, but before it reaches its final destination, press the button for any other floor in order to cancel the ascension. You must cancel the ascension before the elevator returns to the 10th floor. When you reach the ground floor, do not exit the elevator immediately. Examine your surroundings. If anything seems odd, unusual, or incorrect, remain aboard, press the button for the 4th floor, and repeat the numerical floor sequence until your surroundings once again look as they should. When you are positive that the elevator has returned to the correct ground floor, you may safely exit. Think twice about using the elevator again. You may terminate the ritual at any point prior to reaching the 10th floor by pressing the button for any other floor. See, that's what's different in Evil, because it says that nothing will happen if you quit it, but it's also said in Evil that you'll be cursed forever, or you'll be haunted forever.
You'll be haunted, yeah.
If you terminate it in the middle.
And also, seeing that you've stopped yourself, there was also in Evil the number 12. Mm-hmm. You could only stay for 12 minutes. You had to get out. That didn't say a specific amount of time, right?
It says
look around, stuff like that, but it doesn't say...
Yeah, it says...
Don't go too far, but did it say a time? I was ignoring you.
Yeah,
to be
no,
honest
it doesn't.
With you. Okay. So that's another thing that's different. Is the 12 minutes thing. I have a few things that are different about it. Continue.
If another person boards the elevator at any time during the ritual, and this person is not the woman who may board the 5th floor, the ritual has failed. Return the elevator to the ground floor, and exit it, and leave the building. You may try again another time. Exactly what you see on the 10th floor varies by report. So people have survived this. What's that noise?
There's no noise. I didn't hear anything.
According to some, the world in which you will find yourself in will appear virtually identical to your own. However, two details may stand out. Every single light will be off, and if you look out the windows...
Sorry. That's
you
hilarious.
You just scared me.
Devin just walked in from there, and she's totally...
Why were you so silent?
So I was trying not to interrupt your thing.
Thanks, Devin. That was appreciated.
Piss my pants.
Continue.
Every single light will be off, and if you look out the windows, all you'll be able to see will be a red cross looming in the distance. It's also not known whether electrical devices like phones and cameras function in this world. According to some, they do, while according to some, they don't. Returning to the elevator after exploring the world on the 10th floor may be something of a challenge. Time and space do not function as they do in your world.
That's okay.
As such, you may become disoriented and be unable to find the elevator, or it may feel as though the elevator is getting further away whenever you attempt to approach it. Do whatever you do in order to keep yourself awake and alert. On that note, if you faint or go to sleep at any point while playing this game, you'll wake up to find yourself in your own bed with no memory of how you got there. You want to take stock of your surroundings, however. What looks like your own bed, in your own home, in your own world, may not in fact be yours. And one last reminder about the woman from the 5th floor. Do not look at her. Don't speak to her. If you do, she might not let you go home. Ever.
So
Ever.
There's the answer to your question. There are different versions. Now, obviously, I call this the codified version because I kind of feel, that this book, to a large degree, and I would love to get this woman on Spooky South Coast. Love to get her on Midnight Society. I've tried to reach out to her. She doesn't respond. Maybe she's like the woman in the elevator. She's not what she seems. Mm-hmm. But this is one of those things where I feel she's gathered these from a whole bunch of different places and taken kind of like the best of them. So there are different versions of what the woman, and it's always a woman. I've never heard the legend differently. What she will do to you. Some say you'll be trapped in the nether regions, or the nether world. Not the nether regions. She's not going to touch you in the nether regions. But that she will trap you somehow. That you will be unable to escape because... well, I'll get to that in a little bit. Maybe the kind of thing of it. Some of the other things that were different, I'm not really sure in either of them because in although it only really worked with when people were alone. No, because she was with David when it worked too. But, whatever. Yeah. But we don't want to spoil the actual episode because it's actually a pretty good episode. Did you think it was a good episode?
I did. I did get freaked out at one of the points, and I did have to turn on the light for about a split second.
Yeah, she had to turn on the light. Because there's an additional thing there. They say chosen building. And I think that this is an interesting part of this because, like's been pointed out in the chat room, there are some buildings that don't go to 10. There are some buildings in Evil, it was a specific building, and but the video that they watched on it, said it has to be at least 13 stories.
Yeah, but when they went to do it, there was no 13. It was just 12 and then 14. Which
we talked about. If you guys have watched or listened to the numbers episode, we talked about 13 and how oftentimes buildings number differently so that you can't get to the 13th floor. The 13th is the 14th. But I think the odd part about this is, and I understand it makes it generic enough that anyone can pick up this book and go to wherever they're going and play it. But it doesn't say specific buildings. Like if we talked about this was the building in Ghostbusters, or this was Charlesgate, which we're going to talk about, it only has 8 floors. 7 if you're looking at it from the outside. So it limits if you say it, but I think it would be a tighter legend if, and I went online to try to look for this, if there were specific buildings in towns or in areas that were known for you had to do the elevator game in these elevators. But I think she makes it generic enough. When you go online, you'll find a little bit more of, we did it in this building, we did it in this building. There are a ton of videos where people actually go through the elevator game, and spoilers, you have two different versions of it. You've got nothing happens and they just have a really good time freaking each other out, or it's obviously made up.
See each other out, but there's only one person in the elevator.
Well, that's the other part. Can you do it alone, right? And should you do it alone? Would you do this alone, or would you have to have someone with you? Maybe bring Creepy in to...
Not Creepy.
Why not?
I don't
she
think
seems like she would be a good haunted sidekick.
She would cry because there's elevators involved.
Oh, okay, that's true.
I would take Elizabeth.
You would take Elizabeth?
Stone cold heart. Elizabeth.
Well, we might have an issue with that, but yes, I would take Elizabeth.
Huh? She's not alive.
Oh, she's not alive. I would take Elizabeth too. She's a good tripper. She actually went with us to our Amos Bridge. The
other dude. Indris and the other dude.
Amos and Ingrid.
Yeah, that one.
So there's a lot going on with this to unpack. I do think, and I know we've got a lot of really good, funny one-liners going on in the chat tonight about elevators and elevator jokes. I would do this alone. I'm not sure if I would do this with somebody. I've got control issues, so I wouldn't want someone else to start talking to the woman when they shouldn't be talking to the woman.
Right. I would be, if like I went with Elizabeth and I was like, do not talk to the woman. Don't talk to the woman.
Don't talk.
She's not what she seems.
She's not what she seems. I'm just gonna say that all the time.
She's not
you know what I'm saying?
Seems.
Like I'm gonna go on dating websites and just go like, she is not what she seems. We're scared of elevators. We're scared of dying in elevators. Now, one of the things we're gonna talk about tonight is all of the hauntings, or that there are all of these hauntings that involve elevators. It's almost as if you have a haunted building, and they're almost never, it's the single haunting in a building. It's always like there are other hauntings, and let's throw in the elevator just for good measure. There are places that are already haunted. Like there are specific locations. I would love to find one of these haunted buildings that is at least 10 stories high, and maybe do the elevator game there. Would you do that with me?
Yeah, totally.
Probably our best candidate for this would be Beatty Tower. If we could somehow sneak into Beatty Tower and do this. So if we have any gators that are out there that want to help us sneak into Beatty Tower, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So when you talk about the elevator game, what's the first case that comes into your mind?
Elisa Lam.
Elisa Lam.
Duh.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about Elisa Lam, what you remember?
Yes.
About good old Elisa?
Do you remember the year?
I do remember the year. It was in 2013. I wrote it down.
Oh, look at you go. So in 2013, there was this woman. Her name was Elisa Lam, and she went to the Cecil Hotel. That's right? Cecil Hotel?
Yep.
Yeah. So she went to the Cecil Hotel, right? And there's footage of her in the elevator, acting very strangely, looking around.
I'm gonna put my arm here.
Okay. Pressing a lot of the buttons and like looking out, making sure that like no one's following her, some people thought. And then like she completely disappeared right after that.
Yeah, so she disappeared. If you're listening to this, chances are you know it. We covered it when we were talking about Flushing the Ghosts, when we did that episode 66 and 66A. But Elisa Lam went missing from the Cecil Hotel, and then they found this footage.
Yeah. So they found the footage of her right after she went missing, and then a couple days later,
and if you haven't seen that video, you can look that up anywhere. The footage of Elisa Lam, and you'll see what we're talking about when we say.
Should I just pull it up on my phone?
No.
Okay. But basically, what happened is a couple days later, people at the Cecil Hotel started complaining that the water tasted weird. The water was turning black. The water was turning like different colors. So when they opened up the water tank, they found Elisa Lam floating. What? What am I doing wrong?
Huh?
What am I doing wrong?
Huh? No, that's fine. Go ahead.
No, you do it.
It was really the water pressure. I'm not sure there was.
No, people said that the water tasted weird.
Okay. The water didn't turn black. You're thinking about the movie.
If there was a girl,
why would it turn black? Why would it turn black?
I don't know.
Why would the water turn black?
I don't know. Germs. What? I don't know.
Cooties.
Cooties.
Go ahead.
But
I think it's an interesting example of you're mixing the movie Dark Water with the Elisa Lam case, which is totally natural that you're doing it. I'm not judging you. Go ahead.
And they find her floating face up, and she was naked, and her clothes were like all around her in the water tank, and no one knows what happened. She just
and there's a whole documentary on Netflix about it. Some people loved it, some people hated it. I personally, I liked it.
You agree with me?
I liked it, but it was a typical Netflix thing of stretching 2 hours worth of material to 6 hours. But it is an interesting, the way that she is kind of going, the way that she's going over the numbers and the way she thinks as if something is following her. You get the feeling by watching that she is, or she at least in her mind, thinks that she's in another world. And there are plenty of people out there who talk about Elisa Lam, and it has nothing to do with the paranormal or anything supernatural, and we're talking about a case of someone who was deeply disturbed, potentially off their medication, all these kinds of things that give logical reasons of why she was acting that way. And what the documentary does is actually take a...
Oh, hello, Jeff.
It takes a kind of a showing you just the impact that this actually had on people who were kind of overzealous, internet trolls, which is kind of interesting. People who put maybe too much weight on some of the supernatural and paranormal things. What's your theory on it while I text this person who just called in and I'm not sure they know that I'm on the air? Go ahead.
I'm not quite sure what happened to her, but the whole point of this episode and the whole point of bringing her up is some people believe that she was playing the elevator game.
Do you think that, though?
I think that yes. I didn't think that, like, if she wasn't playing the elevator game specifically, she was doing something else, some like dangerous game, in the elevator.
So she's 2013. I think she kind of predates the elevator game. Now, while I think some of the... Are you disagreeing with me?
No, I was going to say something else, but never mind. And, like Margie said, I would think that, like, even if, like, the game didn't work, even if it, like, failed, she could have, like you said, been, like, a psycho lady, and she'd have been, like, off medication or something, and she might have thought she saw something, and that's why she was in distress.
Right. But it's funny how it gets connected to the elevator game, but I'm not quite sure. And when you do the elevator game, she constantly comes up. We've got a caller coming up on the line right now. This is a gentleman who has a little bit of first-hand knowledge about the Cecil Hotel.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. This is Jeff Belanger.
I was watching Instagram Live.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, the Cecil. We worked on that for Ghost Adventures.
So for those of you guys who don't know, Jeff writes and does the research for Ghost Adventures, in addition to being amazing in and of himself and Ghost Village and, the greatest climber of Kilimanjaro of all time.
Well, thank you. So this story is like so perplexing when you pick it apart, right? That this girl is found in a water tank. She's naked. The naked part, I think we can explain pretty easily.
Yeah.
So I believe she went hypothermic, and one of the very last moments of hypothermia is you feel overwhelmingly hot. So when people are found, frozen to death, often their clothes are like partially removed or even entirely removed, and you die. So hypothermia in a water tank that's just cooler than the air will happen, but it's going to take a lot longer.
When you guys were there, did you approach it, or did you focus more on the paranormal angle, or were you guys kind of set with the whole, all right, what I'm saying, like, this is what it is, or was there any evidence that you guys got, or?
Yeah, no, obviously it was way more about the paranormal, and of course the most thing is that video of her in the elevator.
Right.
Like, she's clearly okay and then not okay, and then seemingly being stalked by something that the rest of us can't see. And I think that's the part that just doesn't sit right for all of us, right? Is that something was something in this hotel, man. I mean, this hotel has got a long history of bad stuff happening there. And you could say, well, it's on Skid Row. Drug dealers stayed there because it was cheap, and so, just a bad element was always present there. But I really think that sort of leaves an energy mark, when you've got bad stuff. I mean, Ramirez was there, right? I mean, wasn't...
right, there were 3 different serial killers, one of which was Ramirez, who used to stay there, yeah.
Yeah, so, like, you've got, I mean, just, sometimes it's just there's like a spirit of place, and it just draws a place down. And so that was already there long before Lam ever, checked into the hotel, because she's a student, and it was cheap.
Yeah.
It was a place to stay.
It's interesting. Devin and I were talking today about the Dakota, because for some weird reason he was asking me about Chapman, just kind of out of the blue. And I was talking about the residue that is in these places. I mean, like, that's kind of the essence of a haunted house, and so obviously a hotel which sees that time after time and person after person over year after year, they not only gain a reputation for people who are a little sketchy wanting to go there, but those people are leaving something behind.
Absolutely. And I mean, hotels are transient places, but think about a normal hotel, like some grand hotel somewhere. Lots of people are checking into those places, and they're happy. I'm psyched. I'm on vacation. This is a good place. I think most people, except for total fans of the macabre, who are checking into the Cecil, you're not happy. You can't afford anything nicer. You're not doing well, or maybe you're looking to score drugs or a prostitute or whatever, and so you're already in a semi-dark place, by design, and that just leaves a mark. It feeds on itself.
It's funny because they offer in that documentary. It's kind of they're offering it the mirror image of it, because they follow the people who were the ones who were complaining about the water pressure, and they're this German couple, and they're so excited to be in LA, and everything is so new and fresh. They're a little turned off by this and that, but it's like, oh my word, we're on holiday, and of course their paths intersect. That seedy side and that kind of I guess ignorance is bliss, naive, thinking that you're in the middle of something just because it's LA, running those 2 paths crossing each other in this one little place,
Yep. No, it's a really complicated case all around, and building, and then you add American Horror Story film.
Right.
Right.
I was going to say that.
Yeah. So I mean, and that does add a layer. So now you've got celebrity and intrigue and people. So what happens when a show that popular films at a location? The location gets some celebrity, right? I mean, the location becomes a celebrity.
Right.
And people want to go and become part of the story. And people who are uber fans of some fiction have a hard time telling the difference between fiction and reality. Oh, this is where this really, really happened. Well, no, that was a fictional show. But, some people blur that line. And so that becomes a chapter in this book as well.
And of course, the show itself does a great job. I'm not sure if you're a fan of it.
Yeah, I watched it, yeah.
But it also blurs the line. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have Ramirez, who was there, but then you have a dinner with all of the serial killers, none of the other ones who were there, and so that fact and fiction gets blurred even more intentionally by the show, making the Cecil, its own tulpa. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. No, there's something to that place for sure. And at this point, you go to LA, if you're staying at the Cecil, I mean, who isn't aware that's checking in there?
Right.
This place is iconic now, for good or bad. Mainly bad. It's iconic.
And according to the documentary, they now have 2 separate entrances. So you have the fancy Cecils through one door, and the sleazy or Skid Row section is through another door. But what do they share? The elevator.
Oh, right, of course.
So, and I'm assuming, Jeff, that you've seen the footage, and most of the other people have. She manipulates, and her right hand does look like it's playing the elevator game, in that she, in addition to all the she's looking out, she's looking back, she does hit different buttons, right? She hits a succession of buttons. She hits the call button, which is part of the game and everything like that. So it does lend credence to the fact that that maybe, and of course, we don't know. It sounds more to me, I feel more of doing a little bit more of the research, that the elevator game kind of comes more out of Elisa Lam than Elisa Lam comes out of the elevator game. But it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
Because it's that hard to exactly track creepypasta out there in the tweenverse kind of stuff. So
everything gets blurred inside the Cecil Hotel.
Yeah.
Everything.
Excellent. Well, Jeff, thank you very much for calling in.
Yeah. Keep it up, man. Take care.
All right. Have a wonderful night, man.
See ya.
See you guys.
Bye. That was Jeff Belanger, as if I need to say who Jeff Belanger was, but that was Jeff Belanger of Ghost Village. He writes for the TV show Ghost Adventures, and he has a book that's out right now about Kilimanjaro. So if you're not following Jeff, you need to go do that, because he's got a lot of it. So, Jen, just to address your the question that you had. We're talking. Evil was the inspiration for why we were doing this, because Evil incorporates another element to the story, which I don't know if we should spoil things from the TV show. By the way, we are 45 minutes in, and no one has even offered a guess at today's trivia question. And I'm not sure if that's because everyone who's here has the book, or if they're just so riveted by what we're talking about. So, in the world, and if you're a fan of Evil, in the world of Evil, they've done a really good job of blurring what is real and what's not, in terms of, it's a show. If you're not watching it, we've talked about it a few times on the show now. It's a story about people who are investigating or looking into assessing, they call it. I won't hold it against you, Jen. Supernatural, spiritual attacks, exorcisms. Is the devil on the earth? And they work for the Catholic Church. Over the course of the first season, if you haven't watched it, you had a really hard time. Have you watched the first season?
Yeah.
You've watched bits and pieces, right? You have a really hard time. Don't sing the song. Don't sing the earwig. You have a really hard time telling whether the show is putting forth demons as real or not real, right? Is Leland a demon? Does he work for a demon? Is he just... another incarnation of Benjamin Linus.
It's the weird frog-looking guy, right?
Yeah, the guy who plays Benjamin Linus from... Yeah. In this season, he's going through having an exorcism himself, mainly to manipulate people. And the show does a really good job of, is it true or is it not true? What you're experiencing, is it real or is it not real? Are there demons or they're not demons? E for Elevator is a really good example of that. Because in addition to this elevator game, which may or may not be real, like Ella said, on the episode, they didn't have a 13th floor. So what they did was they...
Wait. Spoilers ahead if you don't want to be spoiled.
No. I'm not going to give the final solution. They tried to stop between the 11th and 12th, between the 12th and 14th floor.
Mm-hmm. And isn't that when
yes.
the thing happened?
So what's good about this story, which I say our stories are kind of lacking, or at least the generic version of the story is lacking, is a specific location. And this one has a specific location. You get the impression that the death that happened there opened up the possibility of the game to be able to be played, because someone had died there and their ghost was still in the area. Do you want to talk about the ghost a little bit? Do you remember the ghost a little bit? I think your eyes were closed.
I think I
think that you were.
crying.
I think you were crying. You were running around trying to turn lights on. Look, I feel like this looks like it's really gray. I feel like I feel like the guy from Spider-Man. Get me a picture of Spider-Man. Okay, go ahead, continue.
I don't remember the story exactly. I remember there's a girl and there's a dog, and something happens to the girl.
The dog is Tiffany.
Yes, the dog is Tiffany. That's the big thing. And while she was dying, I don't remember how. But while she was dying, she was screaming, "Tiffany, Tiffany, Tiffany." So it said.
So she was in the elevator. Do you mind if I interrupt?
Yeah, you can.
She was in the elevator, and it opened up, and the door opened up, and her dog jumped out. Her dog Tiffany jumped out. And this is gonna be relevant later to something I talk about. The dog jumps out. She goes after the dog, which has jumped out, and at that point, the elevator closes, traps her in it, and then crushes her as it continues up or goes down. I'm not sure if it says which, but she gets crushed when the elevator moves, and she's there dying, crushed by the elevator,
she's screaming for
still
her
calling out for her dog Tiffany.
So it said that.
Moral of the story:
Don't
fall in love even with animals. Go ahead, continue.
So the whole thing is that. So her legs got like torn apart because she was being dragged and crushed. So it said that her spirit.
They Darth Mauled her.
They did.
Hey, wait! I wonder if Jeff was earlier when we referenced him about the joke, the Jeff joke.
Maybe.
I should have asked. Continue.
But basically, what she does is she crawls around, right? And it said that with her nails, when she crawls around, it makes the sound teke 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 as she crawls, and that's what this is from. Ignore my terrible handwriting.
Yeah, we became obsessed. And the funny thing is that I watched this like 2 weeks ago when it first came on Paramount Plus, like 2 Sundays ago. And Ella was not here, and she came home, and I just had written because we've got a lot of these blackboard walls now.
Right there.
There's teke teke on the wall. As soon as you walk in the house, and she was like,
"What is teke teke?"
Is
but the scene. Can I talk about the scene?
Yeah, don't talk about the scene.
And, it's really fun. It's great.
It's fun, and it once again, if you're a fan of the show, you know what I'm talking about. One gets solved and one doesn't get solved, and you're left with this kind of idea of like, are they both real? Are they both fake? Let's talk about why we're scared of elevators. So you were talking about your friend kind of summed it all up, right? Other than the Cronenberg idea that was floated in the chat room, you're in an enclosed location, right? You have no control
whatsoever.
Wow, I'm saying whatsoever.
Well, you just push a button.
I mean, here's an interesting thing. How many different elevators? That was great. What? How many different elevators do you think you've been on in your life?
So many.
Really?
Yeah.
You've been on so many elevators. I would say that you've not been on more than 10 elevators in your life.
Are you kidding? I've been to so many hotels.
Okay, so there you go. So that's the other aspect of this is that
so
for a lot of people, that the experience of being in an elevator is foreign because they live wherever they live, they work wherever they work. Elevators are for big buildings. So for me, I took an elevator every single day, and we'll talk about one of my elevators. It was very normal for me. It wasn't foreign to me. It wasn't unusual to me to step in this and things like that. I would say you haven't been in more, because Devin was like, I've been on 50 elevators, and I'm like, you guys haven't been on that many elevators.
After you tell your elevators.
How many people?
Mine.
Do you have an elevator story?
I do have an elevator story.
All right, go ahead.
It's nothing paranormal, but
then why are you talking about it?
Because it scared me.
Okay, go
really
ahead.
bad.
Okay.
So
does anyone care?
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Because it has
I'm
to.
kidding. Go.
It has to do with people's fear
Go.
of elevators.
All right,
Fight
go
me. So basically, I was at my Odyssey of the Mind tournament, right? And I think we were in Orlando, and we were staying at a hotel. And when
I was not with you.
You were not with me. So Mom said that there was no room in the elevator for both of us, so she went with all the luggage, and I went up the stairs. So I think.
Okay.
I think
all right.
All right. I just know. I don't remember exactly what happened, but I remember that this next part, Mom gets stuck in the elevator.
Shut up.
The elevator stops halfway to our floor.
Yeah.
And I can hear her in the elevator shaft, and she's like, "This is stuck," and and she calls me on the phone, and she's like, "The elevator is stuck. It won't move." And I start crying because my mom is literally stuck in the elevator right now. And then it starts working after a few minutes.
But it's that moment, right?
It was
like
really
how
scary.
many times,
I thought I just lost my mom.
How many times it happened? And that would...
It happened more than once, too.
In that same elevator?
In that same elevator.
So that's going to kind of... After we kind of have our little discussion and we start talking about some of the elevators I have known, I'll get into something that's kind of, very similar to that. But I also like that idea of, we have procedures. If you get into a car accident, you get into a car, you put a seatbelt on, something happens. If you're the driver, you know what you do. If you're a passenger, you know what to do. And it happens enough that you've seen it, you've experienced. What the hell do you do when an elevator malfunctions, right? And like Ella's saying right now, it's not as if elevators are flawed or unflawed, flawless. Like, you might not find an elevator with all of the safety precautions dropping, and it's crashing. Like an elevator that's in some place where civilians would be. But that doesn't stop that from clicking in your brain when that malfunction happens, when that happens. And then you're helpless. You're in complete at the beck and call of someone who might be able to help you, might not be able to help you. We've all seen all the crazy movies where, it seems so easy to get out of an elevator. You just open the thing. Although how many of us would ever be able to actually do that if we were in a situation where we had to escape an elevator?
A metal door that is on tracks, question mark?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're on tracks, so that makes it even harder to open.
How many people a year do you think die in an elevator? How many people a year? I'm holding.
I saw it earlier. I don't remember the number. I know it starts with a 3.
How many people a year?
300.
Die in elevators.
About 300. Oh, I think I was with Mom.
About 27 people die a year. An average of 20 seats. Now, these numbers would be a little bit lower than they would have been earlier, like 100 years ago, when a lot of these stories take place, right? But 27, you are, and of that, half of it are people who are installing the elevator. So really, you're talking about, in this country, only 14 people die a year from being a passenger on an elevator and something happens. And I shouldn't say a passenger on an elevator, because then more than half of those are from chutes. So when they say dying from an elevator, they also mean a whole bunch of kids go into an abandoned building and they die in the elevator shaft because they're fooling around and there's no elevator and they die in the elevator shaft. 17,000 are injured. The majority of those are from, once again, you have a 1 in 10 million chance of dying in an elevator.
I'm still not taking it.
And there it is. I mean, she said it right there. It is one of those nearly, you are more likely to get killed. They did a whole list of things you're more likely than. But you are more likely to die taking the stairs. 1,600 people die a year taking the stairs. 14 die being in an elevator. So it is a completely irrational fear that we have, and yet in that moment of right, and even just the thought of it goes because you're in a coffin. I mean, essentially, you are.
You have no food. You have no water.
Yeah, and I love the Office episode where immediately, they're stuck for a minute, and Dwight starts peeing in the corner to mark where the bathroom one should be, the bathroom corner should be, and he's like, "You just got up." So I posted this. I'm on a few different new groups on Facebook, and this one was a folklore one, and I posted that I wanted to connect this to something deeper. Like that's what we're trying to do, right? Not only talk about it, maybe talk about real cases or cases of haunted legends, but like, what does this connect to? You know, like we can say railroad, we can say roadside ghosts, like a hitchhiker legend. Hitchhiker legend traces its roots back to carriages, which traces its roots back to the wanderer on the road, which, the fear of the voyage, like all those kinds of things. And I was rolling around in my brain, like what is the equivalent of this? Like what is the folklore been scared of for centuries / generations, long before elevators? What is the link that that links it to a fear and a theme or a motif in folklore that is probably equally as frightening? Do you think I came up with an answer?
What?
I had a hard time. Do you think I came up with an answer for that? Or did you zone me out halfway through that?
I zoned you out halfway through it. Sorry.
Okay, well, you can just respond to that while I... So, I was thinking that...
Like, what is it about? Just tell me.
Well, I'm not going to give you hints.
No, like summarize.
So, I'm going to summarize the audience so you can get the summary there. They're fairy trees. Right? Like, if you listen to... the details of the elevator game, it sounds a lot like getting lost in fairyland, right? Mixed with being buried alive, mixed with that idea of claustrophobia, mixed with it. I mean, excuse me, the journey is the same as transporting yourself to fairyland, right? You enter, the circle, the elevator, maybe the tree, right? You do a ritual. You're transported to another place that you're not supposed to be in. You're not supposed to make contact with the people. So, do you know things about, like, in fairylands, they talk about, like, don't eat food? Mm-hmm. Right? I think we've talked about that.
That was in one of my books.
The same kind of thing, there are certain people that you're not supposed to talk to when you are in the fairy realm, right? And that idea, which...
I think it's like you can't eat stuff or your stomach will, like, never be able to digest human food again.
Which kind of goes back to, remember the singing manatee?
I do.
Where if you ever drank from the spring, you would never be able to find peace again if you were not in the spring. But it's this idea that there is a difference between the two of them, right? They look alike. So the other differences between evil and the kind of, like I said, codified version is that in the codified version, there are several mentions of you might think you're home, but you're not, right? The fairy world, the nether regions. Do they call it the Netherland? What do they call it?
They call it the Netherland.
Netherland or nether regions? Do you know what the nether regions
I know
are?
What the nether regions
Okay. Hell. We'll call it hell.
Yeah.
Or this alternative, and there was another version that I had that was a little bit more like the hallway game, where it was alternate universe. You were in an alternate universe where things are kind of a lot.
Hallway game. Oh, the doors.
The doors,
mind?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is this idea that it's like our place, but not. It's slightly off. And if you're not strong of mind and of character and of heart, blah, 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 then you have a really good chance of getting trapped in that world, which you were seeking out, but you don't really want to stay there, right? Like, no one wants to stay with the fairies because they always want to, like, do... And there's that inherent thing of, if you take anything back, you'll never make it back. If you talk to anybody, if you eat anything, if you interact with certain people, those are... I think that a little bit of that, at least if not in elevator hauntings, at least in the elevator game, is kind of playing itself out. You have no commentary for that?
No, I'm just listening to what you're saying.
Oh, that's good. I would like. You have any feedback for that, or?
No. Other than, like, you're right about, like, things are not what they seem when they do this. Because there's another one about, like, a black telephone. And it said that, like, once you teleported to this make-believe world, right? Or this, not make-believe, but, like, the world that you teleported to.
If it's in an elevator, is it an heliport? Go ahead, continue.
But, it's like everything is the same. But look at the windowsills, they're black.
Right.
Because it's always that, like, there's something, it's exactly the same. But this one thing's off.
But this one thing is off. And it's interesting because that theme of it being slightly off carries into a lot of what are hauntings. A lot of the hauntings that they talk about in terms of elevators all have to do with things being slightly off. But the major theme of it seems every single one of those hauntings is you have no control.
None.
You have no control of where that elevator is going. When the paranormal gets involved, it now reveals itself and controls this world through the elevator, right? So if we think about it, we can... Have you ever seen a ghost?
Nope.
No. Maybe not, right? Have you ever had something, the TV go on when it wasn't supposed to?
Yes.
Right? Have you ever had the radio go off? Do you know what a radio is?
Of course I know what radio is.
Have you ever had heard a voice on tape that wasn't supposed to be? This idea that ghosts... You had your name mentioned, right? This idea that while ghosts might not be able to reach out and touch us and grab us or, talk to us in an auditory, being able to hear it without the help of something kind of way, they can manipulate electricity, right? And it's interesting because those people who are more on the side of skepticism will still entertain the idea of spirits being energy, and even say, well, it might not be a ghost, but it is unexplainable energy. To make yourself known, what is better than an elevator, right? I mean, an elevator is something electric that you can manipulate, you can control, you can even to some degree have a personality with, right? Going up, going down, opening, closing. So in addition to people often report feeling a sense of electricity when they're in these haunted elevators, or hearing. Sorry, got a little bit of a. Can you hit me a lozenge from there to the cup? People are reporting like the temperature going down dramatically or the temperature going up dramatically. We of course have nothing there. The other one over there, the cup, Elsa.
Okay.
The idea, and Ella touched upon this, Evil touches upon this, the book touches upon it a little bit, thank you very much. The idea that there is interference with your phone, right? Like our phone is our lifeline, especially in those situations. And think about it. Reception is fine in the lobby, reception is fine on your floor, reception's crap when you're in that elevator. Have you left me now, or are you abandoning me?
No, I just need to walk around.
She needs to walk around for a little bit, especially while Dad's talking and rambling on. So... Huh?
My legs hurt.
Okay. I have that effect on people. So let's talk about one of the first ones that I want to talk about. And actually, we're running out of time a little bit, so we might even just do like a little offshoot episode just of these. But I want to tell at least one elevator story that is that has to do with a very similar backstory. So I'm going to talk about, and you know what? If you're not coming back,
I'm coming back.
oh, you're coming back. All right.
I'm
I want to talk about the Charlesgate Hotel. So not nearly as colorful of the Cecil Hotel, although, it's not too far off. It's what I consider to be the most haunted building in Boston. I was there for 2 years as a student at Emerson College. So this was in between BU having it, and then BU owned it, and then it was kind of like sleazy housing, and then Emerson owned it, and then it was sold off, and now it costs about $2 million to live in some area not much bigger than this room, a few $1,000,000 to live in the Charlesgate Hotel. I mean, it was like, hey, look, there's there's Fenway Park, and there's my dorm, and there's a guy shooting up on our front steps. I mean, it was a pretty horrific place. A lot of the ghosts that were said to be there were from the time of. It was owned by the mafia. It was owned by organized crime in Boston, and the back of this, the support of this was that you couldn't see the 8th floor from the outside. And that was supposedly where a lot of the shady shit went down, on that 8th floor, which you could not see from anywhere from the outside. One of the stories has to do with a little girl.
Fun.
Isn't it though? And this little girl was in the elevator. Now, keep in mind that almost all of these, nothing can ever be backed up, right? People have been talking about this little girl for 100 years. No one can identify at what point she lived there, or when, or if she actually died, or if there was ever a little girl that lived there. Although, like I said, it was tenement kind of housing for a while. There's an elevator. It goes from the sub-basement, kind of like an eagle, from the sub-basement to the 8th floor. I'm pretty sure there was no way to get to the sub-basement without a key. Like, you needed the key to get down there. Back in the day, it used to be stables, they said. There was an accident, there was a flood, and a whole bunch of the horses died, so there's supposedly ghosts of horses in the sub-level. Thank you. This little girl is in the elevator, and she's playing with a rubber ball. Right? Huh?
That's never good.
And
little girls in a hotel?
The elevator opens up. Of course, it opens up on the 3rd floor, right? Opens up, and the ball drops out of her hands just at that moment, right? And she goes out, my ball! She goes out of the elevator to get the ball, trips, elevator closes on her, crushes her, almost the exact same way as Teke Teke. And people talked about this as if it was 100% something that was real. And it's said that in the Charlesgate Hotel, you could hear tukum, 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 like the bouncing of the ball. You could hear a little girl crying. Now, I rode that elevator hundreds of times, at least. Never experienced it, but people would talk about it, and the details were always different. Some say she was playing with the ball, she got cut in half. It was on the 1st floor. She had just gotten in. She got brought down to the sub basement, and they never found her body. Like, obviously, these stories, you cannot deny the fact that the Charlesgate Hotel is haunted, and I can only imagine, given the class of people who were there, they had to have taken that elevator out. Because it was positively, you were talking about the one in the hotel, it is positively the worst elevator in the existence of elevators. And if there's anyone listening here who has ever spent time in Charlesgate, if you were at Emerson College or a BU student back in the day, it would go, you couldn't control it, right? It would go from the 1st floor to the 8th floor. It would go from the 8th floor maybe to the 5th floor. It would go to... from the 8th floor down to the 1st floor, not open up, then go back up to the 8th floor, and then go back down to the 1st floor. There was no way whatsoever. It felt, and every ride, you didn't know where you were going, and you never lost that feeling that you were going to get trapped. I got trapped in that elevator at least 5 times. Because what would happen is this. Everyone learned on the elevator where your stop was, right? So you're on an elevator, you go, chugum, chugum, chugum. You know what I'm saying? As it's going by the floors. And what people would do is, people would not hit the stop button. They would, when their stop came, they would open the door real quick. And if you did just on time, it was open. It would open right at that floor. So every person got to, that was the way you got out of that, which of course didn't help with the electronics. Could have been the ghosts, could have been the horrible electronics. There were like a lot of things that were wrong with the electricity of that place. Worst time it ever happened to me, with the elevator. I had just come home from visiting my parents, and I didn't visit my parents a lot when I was in college. You don't know this, I don't think. Their Papa makes the best salsa in the world. I mean, I've gotten the recipe. I've duplicated the recipe a few times. There is Papa's salsa. He's the best Italian salsa in the world, right? Like, I don't know if I can say it, but like in terms of an Italian guy who makes salsa, like Papa's hits it. And I had just come back from my parents' house, and I had this huge bucket. I mean, like a bucket of salsa. And
Uh-oh.
huh?
I said, uh-oh.
Uh-oh. I know where this is going. You really don't probably know where it's going. Yes, Jen. Jen, I'm not sure if you were at the Charlesgate or if you were at the Boylston, which also had a crazy elevator, but not haunted. We're going up in the elevator. We left to go down to the store to get chips.
For the salsa.
For the salsa, right? We're coming back up. We open. We get stuck.
Ooh.
And I'm pretty sure it was me and Jenna and my friend Dave. We get stuck in the elevator for, I think, like 2 hours. Now, keep in mind, when we get stuck in the elevator, we can see. So it's not like, there's that claustrophobia. All of a sudden, I hear my roommate say, dude, can we have some of that salsa? Between Matt Schreiber and Pete Pedini, and I think some other people, those dudes ate a huge bucket of salsa.
In the elevator?
While I was trapped in the elevator. I was so pissed. Not a haunted story.
That's probably so mad.
But the Charlesgate, so to get back to the fun part, I just always, when that elevator, I think about the salsa incident, and I'm still pissed about it. I think a lot of times, if you have a tragedy, if you have something that's happened there, if you have a reputation for other things, I've got...
And people do all of them tonight.
I've got 8 other hauntings. Each and every one of them involves other places that are haunted, right? So there's another haunting that's going on, or another thing that's mishapped, and along with that, the elevator's messed up. So it makes you wonder whether these haunted elevators are really just screwed up elevators because elevators screw up. And of course, because there's also a haunting here, I'll give you a really good example of it. I can give you 2. One is the Ringling College of Art, right? Mm-hmm. So do you remember the story of the Ringling College of Art?
I think I do.
So just to summarize very briefly, and I'm going to preface again, like if you buy Haunted Florida Love Stories, or if you're able to answer the trivia question for tonight and get a free copy, there's a story of Mary in there. And Mary has been around for generations now. And depending on which version of the story you go with, it's basically a woman who either killed herself or was murdered and continues to roam the halls. It used to be a hotel. Now it is it's a dorm for the Ringling College of Art. She, in different versions of the story, hung herself in the stairway of that building. Because she hung herself in the stairway of the building, what has she also said to haunt?
The stairway?
The elevators.
The elevators.
I'm not even sure there are elevators in that building.
That would be funny.
Right? Like when we went, you didn't go with me, Devin went with me.
But
If there are, I mean, it's like there's nothing in the story that has to do with elevators whatsoever. But I've read that she haunts the elevators. I also read that she committed suicide in the elevators. None of which can be substantiated, and none of which is old. It's all newer stuff with people going on. So me telling you, you telling someone else, and down the road. You know what? I'm going to hold off on the rest of these because I think we've got really good. Like I said, I've got almost 10 just in Florida ones that I've been to. And I think we can hold off on that. I'm not sure if we're going to do it next week or maybe we'll do a drop-in episode because people are still asking for the connection between Highgate Cemetery. Were you here for the Highgate Cemetery one?
Maybe.
No, I don't think you were. So I might just do like an episode, not necessarily on Midnight FM.
Where it's always midnight.
But maybe just a drop-in episode where I kind of discuss some of these things. Maybe we'll go live with it. I'll let you guys let me know what you think about that if you want that. So I'm gonna stop here for now. Do you want to be involved with me going through my list of haunted elevators?
Sure.
Okay, so we might have to wait until maybe we'll do it tomorrow night.
Well, I don't have you tomorrow.
I got plans. We changed the schedule, just so
Wait,
you
what?
know. We'll get into it a little later. So,
Okay.
rather than going over too long, we're going to end it right here. Please make sure that you are following us on all the different platforms that we're on and connecting with us in all the different ways you can connect. On our Instagram at Spooky Balzano or Spooky Tripping. Twitter, we're at Spooky Balzano there. Facebook.com/Tripping on Legends. And if you go to Tripping on Legends, you can also find the links to the other kind of projects that I'm working on. The name of the website, Tripping on Legends, trippingonlegends.com. Please rate and review us. Please make sure that you are, if you're enjoying the podcast or if you're getting the podcast, however you do, if you can do me a huge favor, do us a huge favor and go on and actually rate it. Because, there are a lot of people out there. I'm trying to expand some things. A lot of people out there, they don't think that, it's worth even bringing me on to talk about my book if my show doesn't get a certain amount of followers. So I would love to be able to get to the point where, there's a certain amount of reviews. And of course it tells us, what we're doing well, what we're not doing well. Anything that I've left out?
No, that I can think of.
Nothing that you can think of? All right. Well, then I think it's about time we say goodnight. What do you think?
I think so too.
I think so too. I think this episode has been uplifting. Get it?
On
Lift?
so many levels.
British people call it a lift.
That's kind of lame.
You're kind of lame.
A lift.
Don't be rude to British people.
A lift.
Are there any other good elevator jokes we can go out on?
Well, wait, scroll up. Maybe they have some elevator jokes in there.
They don't. I was looking as we go. Nancy, I'll actually be talking about an elevator. I have a few elevator operator jokes, not jokes, elevator operator haunted stories as well. So, please make sure that you're doing all to be part of the Tripping on Legends family. In addition, we've got some events coming up. I'm doing an event this Friday, which probably will be too late to advertise here, but I've got a ton already scheduled for September and October. So you're going to want to follow Tripping on Legends so you can kind of see what you can see kind of where we're going with things and the different events that we're doing. So for Christopher Balzano
And Ella Balzano
here's hoping that all of your trips
are legendary.